The man who ordered no-contact delivery kept trying to tip me in his basement. I do app grocery runs. It's not some cute side hustle. It's what I grab when rent eats my soul. Load the trunk, follow GPS, drop the bag, snap the pic, move on. I don't care who's behind the doors. I don't want to. That night, I was tired in that numb way where your body still moves, but your brain just hums. My phone sat at like 8%, gaslight on, back screaming. I told myself one more order, then home, shower, collapse. Then this big one pops up. High tip flagged in orange. Way higher than usual for a pretty basic card. Bread, frozen pizzas, cheap whiskey, Tylenol, snacks. I hit accept before my brain even argued. Only after it locked in did I notice the address. Dead block. Half-empty duplexes. I've driven past that street and watched kids throw rocks at a streetlight for fun. It felt like that sort of place where if you scream, people turn their TVs up. The order note said, no contact delivery. Leave at door. Perfect. No small talk, no you're stronger than you look, just drop and go. I pulled up and instantly hated everything. One side of the duplex boarded. The other side's porch sagged like a rotten tooth. One weak bulb above the door threw this sick yellow cone that didn't reach the yard. No cars. No porch clutter. Just empty. I sat in my car for a second and listened. Nothing. Not a dog. Not a TV. Not a person. Just wind and the occasional far-off engine. I told myself I was being dramatic. High tip, remember? I stacked as many bags as I could in my arms and climbed the porch. The boards flexed and creaked. The door already sat cracked, open an inch, like someone had peeked out and forgot to shut it. That's never a good sign on this job. Closed door equals normal. Half open at night equals weird. I set the first bag down and shifted the others, balancing them on my hip. I angled my phone, ready to bump the door with my elbow, open enough for a quick picture of the drop. Before I even moved, a man's voice shot out from the dark inside. Not a cough first, not a hello, just this impatient bark. Just bring it down, stairs on the left. I'll add cash. It hit me like cold water. The app never mentioned stairs. The note said no contact. My brain flashed red. His voice didn't sound weak. No ease, no pain, just this irritated tone like I was already screwing up his plan. Mid-30s maybe, sharp, annoyed I dared follow the instructions he'd set. I stepped back so fast a bag swung and knocked my knee. I kept my eyes on that narrow slice of darkness inside. My gut screamed leave. My bank account screamed stay. I raised my voice, saying I had to leave it upstairs, app rules. I sounded shaky and pissed. I was both. That's when a hand shot out. Bare arm, pale, thin hair on it. No sleeves, no brace, no nothing. The fingers clamped the top bag and yanked. Not just taking it, pulling. Like he expected my body to come with it. I let go immediately. He stumbled backward step and the door swung wider. For a couple seconds, I got a clear view. Narrow hallway, wall stained, no pictures, no rug. Directly in front, steep concrete stairs dropping down into this thick black basement. No light on, not even chain dangling. Just darkness climbing up the steps like water. If you can't walk well, you don't hang out at the bottom of that. The smell rolled out, wet concrete, old mold, something metallic and stale. I've been in enough shitty basements to recognize the vibe. Nobody cleans down there. He recovered quick and dragged the door, mostly shut again, so I couldn't see his face. Just that arm, still gripping the bag, the door blocking the rest of him. His voice snapped harder, like I'd broken some unspoken rule. He said the app promised a handoff, said I'd lose the bonus, said drivers who actually wanted to work always brought it down. Right then my phone buzzed. New in-app message from him. Please bring to basement. I can't walk well. I stared at the screen. I replayed his voice in my head. Strong. Sharp. Definitely not a guy who couldn't handle 10 steps. I know what the app does to you. It spreads your brain out between tips and ratings and completion rate until your boundaries start to blur. You start telling yourself stupid shit like, maybe I'm overreacting, maybe I should just go. That thought tried to crawl in. I killed it. I thumbed support's recording feature on without looking. Then I raised the phone like I was just checking a text. I aimed at the gap and snapped a photo. Open door, those stairs, his bare arm in the edge of the frame. The flash popped. My voice came out louder and steadier than I felt. I said support could listen to this later when I reported him for trying to drag me inside. I said the word drag on purpose. I wanted it on record. He froze. I heard the tiniest hitch in his breath. Then the arm vanished and the door slammed so hard the porch rattled. I dropped the remaining bags in front of the door, snapped the official delivery pic with hands that trembled, and walked, almost ran, back to my car without letting myself look behind me. As soon as I sat down, I locked the doors and just sat there shaking, heart pounding against the steering wheel. Part of me wanted to cry. The other part wanted to go back and kick the door in and ask what the fuck his plan was. Neither part won. I just drove a block away and pulled over. That's when I saw it. While my hands still shook and notifications slid down, order marked as delivered. He'd done it from his end, closed it out before I could mark anything weird. That flipped something in me. Fear turned to anger. I took my time and screenshotted everything. The pic with the stairs. The in-app, please bring TO basement message. The delivery status. His address. I saved the audio file of his voice. I dumped it all into a long message to support, describing every second from the first yell to the hand on the bag. Then I sent the screenshots and a shorter rant to my friend. I wrote that if I went missing on a run, start with that address. She replied instantly, told me to call the cops. I stared at that text and imagined trying to explain it. No assault, no actual crime, just a bad feeling and a half-seen staircase. I pictured them shrugging, maybe noting my name, then moving on. I went home instead. I checked my door lock 3 times and kept the hallway light on all night. Every creak sounded like slow steps on wood. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that dark basement mouth. In the morning, I opened the app, half expecting some message from support. Nothing. I checked my trip history. 5 runs from the night before. The creepy one should have been number 6. It wasn't there. No record. No ID number. No chat log. The screenshots still sat in my phone, but the app acted like that order never existed. That scared me more than the guy. Glitches happen, sure, but what are the odds the one run that feels like a trap just disappears? Either the system broke in the most convenient way for him, or someone buried it. Either option sucks. I still deliver, but I don't chase high tips anymore if the address feels off, and I don't follow updated instructions that pop up only when I arrive. I see basement, back door, come inside, I hit cancel. My balance suffers. My survival odds improve. I keep that photo on my phone. The open door, the ugly stairs, the pale arm. I look at it when I start to feel stupid for being scared. There's nothing dramatic in it. Nothing you could take to a detective. Just enough to remind me my gut didn't invent it. I screenshotted everything anyway and sent it to support and a friend. The order vanished from my history by morning. To the guy who waits at the bottom of stairs for desperate delivery workers. I don't know exactly what you plan to do down there, but I'm glad I left your shit on the porch. Let's not meet. My neighbor tests how much pain he can make sound like nothing wrong through shared walls. I didn't notice right away because this building already sounds like a throat clearing itself. Paper-thin apartments, bad plumbing, doors that slam if you breathe too hard. You hear fights, showers, shitty music, people crying into their phones. You learn to tune half of it out or you go crazy. Then 4B moved in. I saw him first in the lobby, just standing there like he'd been placed, clean hoodie, clean sneakers, too neat for this dump. He held the front door open for me and kept his eyes on me the whole time, this fixed little smile like he was waiting for a cue. The door slipped from his hand and bumped his shoulder, and he still didn't look away. Something in my gut tightened. Nothing big, just that little animal alarm that never uses actual words. First few nights, it was normal noise. People stomping around above me. Someone binge watching some show. A baby on another floor going off at 2 a.m. Then, maybe around midnight on a Tuesday, I heard it. Not a fight. No words. Just a sharp, raw yell from above. Then another. Then another. 3 short bursts, like someone getting jabbed with a needle over and over. Then one long scream that dragged and broke, like he squeezed the rest of it out. Then silence. I froze with my phone in my hand. I waited for the usual follow-up. The crash, the stop, the thud of somebody hitting a wall. Nothing. 30 seconds. Then the exact same pattern again. 3 short, 1 long, silence. It felt wrong immediately. Not random. Not like a couple going at it. Structured. I stood there barefoot on my floor, phone open to 911, trying to decide if I was about to ruin some guy's voice lesson or ignore someone being hurt. My brain started bargaining with itself. Maybe it's a game. Maybe it's a movie. Maybe he's just a dramatic asshole. I didn't move. I just listened. Same timing, same length, like he was counting in his head. I didn't call. I hate admitting that, but I didn't. Part of it was fear. If cops came up here and found nothing, then I'm the crazy neighbor, and that label sticks. Part of it was that weird bystander thing where you wait for someone else to move first, and when they don't, you decide it must not be that bad. The next night, the same thing. Not exact same time, but same pattern. 3 short, 1 long, silence. Like reps at the gym. The building adjusted to it so fast it scared me. TV stayed on. Toilets flushed. Nobody opened a door. Nobody knocked on his. When I ran into people on the stairs, nobody looked tired or pissed off. If they heard it, they'd already filed it under not my problem or acting guy upstairs before I even got the words ready. One evening, I came home earlier than usual. My shift got cut, so I was back around sunset. I climbed the stairs, turned toward my hallway, and his door stood open a few inches. No TV glow, no music, just still air. Through the gap, I saw him in the middle of his empty living room. Mattress on the floor, lamp, that's it. He held a cheap little stopwatch in one hand. He faced the wall we share. My wall. He took a huge breath like a swimmer, shoulders up, ribs wide, and then he let out this scream that made the ones I'd heard through the ceiling sound like warm-ups. It hit me in the chest. His whole body shook with it. Neck veins popped. Face went blotchy, spit flew. And he stared at the wall the whole time, eyes narrowed, like he was watching my apartment through the drywall. When he cut it off, he checked the stopwatch and his lips moved, counting. My spine crawled. I must have made a sound because his head snapped toward the door. Our eyes met through that little gap. I flinched. The smile slid onto his face like someone pulling a curtain. Working on projection for a role, he said, calm, almost bored, like his throat wasn't raw meat. No script, no mic, no camera, nothing. Just him, the clock, and that wall. I nodded like an idiot and got into my place as fast as I could without actually running. I locked both locks, then slid down to the floor and sat there feeling my pulse in my gums. I couldn't stop replaying how he'd watched the wall. Not the room, not a mirror, my side. After that, I started noticing when he chose to scream, not just that he did. He never did it when people were in the hallway. You'd hear someone's keys, someone dragging groceries, a neighbor arguing on speakerphone, and from 4B, there'd be nothing. Total quiet, like he was in standby mode. Then, once footsteps faded and doors shut, you get the first sound. Short, harsh, like getting punched in the breath. Then again, then the long one, the one that sounded like skin peeling. Sometimes I'd hear the elevator ding midway through a scream, and it would choke off mid-note like someone had hit pause. His floorboards would creak like he'd walked closer to the door. I'd picture him standing there, same way I was standing on my side, ear tilted, waiting to see if anyone reacted. Nobody did. Doors stayed shut. TV volumes never dipped. And after the stranger reached their apartment and the hallway went dead again, he'd start up. Once, after this especially ugly long scream that made my eyes water through the ceiling, I heard him laugh. It wasn't loud, just this low, please sound, like he'd hit a personal best. I tried mentioning it to the landlord, casual like, hey, the new guy in 4B is kinda loud, you know? She shrugged and said, he told me he's an actor. He said he might do vocal stuff sometimes. Nothing I can do unless it's after quiet hours. That was it. He'd planted a story before I even complained. I heard other tenants repeat it later. In the laundry room, a woman rolled her eyes and said, "Yeah, that theater guy upstairs screams sometimes. I just put my headphones in." She laughed. I didn't. The worst moment was the night I decided to test him back. The pattern had been going for maybe 20 minutes. I sat there with my hands shaking and finally snapped. I yanked my door open right in the middle of the long scream and stepped into the hallway. It cut off like a wire got ripped out of a wall. Silence dropped hard. I stared at his door. The peephole looked black, empty, and then I saw it change shade, dark, then a bit lighter like someone's eye had moved right up against it. He knew I was there. I could feel it. My chest hurt. My brain tried to come up with something to say, something simple, "Everything okay?" or "Cut it out, man." But all that came out was nothing. My throat tightened. I just stood there, breathing loud, while he watched me through that tiny glass circle. No locks turned. No hindi skreketh. After maybe 30 seconds, the peephole brightened again. He'd stepped back. I backed into my place, shut the door, slid the deadbolt, then shoved a chair under the knob, even though I knew how useless that actually is. He didn't scream again that night. The quiet felt worse. A few days later, sirens tore past the building. Not for us, some crash or fight on the main road. You could hear them rise and fall, one after another. Nobody here reacted. No heads at windows, no doors cracked. People just kept doing dishes, showering, yelling at kids. The whole building stayed in its lane, like the sound belonged to some other world. I lay there listening to those sirens and thought about how many nights we'd heard screams that sounded exactly like someone dying, and we'd trained ourselves not to move. We'd rehearsed apathy without calling it that. And I thought about him upstairs running drills, practicing volume, timing cutoffs, teaching himself exactly how far he could push a horrible sound before cops got called, before neighbors panicked. I know how that sounds. Paranoid, dramatic. I hear myself, but I also hear him. He still screams, not as often, more spaced out, like he's in the maintenance phase of some fucked up workout plan. He's never touched me, never threatened me. We nod in the hallway sometimes, and he smiles that same too slow smile. But now when I hear sirens outside and nothing in the building reacts, I think about how many nights he's trained the cops and the neighbors to write off terrible sounds as that acting guy upstairs. I upvoted a dark fantasy on a throwaway account and found out later it was a real crime scene. I remember the exact motion of my thumb more clearly than what I ate that day. I was lying in bed, phone in one hand, brain fried from work, doing what I always do when I don't want to think about my own shit, scrolling through the worst parts of Reddit. You know the subs. Confessions that should go to a therapist or a cop, not a comment section. I tell myself I read them because it makes me feel better about my own life, but that night I was just bored and pissed off and looking for something that hit harder than memes. The post popped up with one of those vague titles like "just a dark fantasy, don't freak out." Brand new account, no history. Of course, the body was a wall of text, and I should have just kept going, but my thumb twitched and I hit the little upward arrow out of habit before my brain caught up. Anything long usually means effort, and I had this dumb reflex of rewarding effort. I saw the karma count jump by 1, realized what I was reading, and my stomach tightened. I took the upvote back and dropped it to a downvote like that somehow balanced the scales. It doesn't, by the way. It does absolutely nothing. He wrote it in second person, like he was trying to drag you into it. You see her on the side of the road. You slow down. Some girl with a backpack and ripped shorts, thumb out, middle of nowhere, practically begging for it. His words, not mine. I remember feeling this hot wash of disgust and also this weird, gross curiosity, which I hate admitting. I skimmed because I didn't want his words in my head, but I also didn't close the app. That's on me. What stuck wasn't the violence, not exactly. God knows I've scrolled past worse on those subs. It was the way he described the place he took her. He called it a closed rest stop off some rural highway. He talked about the vending machines first, which is such a random detail. So the glass was cracked on one, spiderweb like it had been kicked in years ago, and the other one had this sticky brown streak down the side like someone threw a soda at it ages back and never cleaned it. One security light over the parking lot was out, so the whole side near the bathroom was darker. And in the women's bathroom, on the inside of the stall door, he said there was graffiti, 3 words, in all caps, "God hates tourists." He even mentioned the paint color, this ugly, faded red, like someone used leftover house paint and a cheap brush. I remember thinking, why the fuck would you invent that? Who sits down to write a fantasy about breaking a girl and spends half a paragraph on busted vending machines and stupid graffiti? People in the comments argued about it. Some said it was clearly fake. Others said this is either the best writing prompt I've seen or someone needs to be reported. I felt this wave of nausea, hit back, downvoted, and moved on to some other thread about neighbor drama like I could flush it out of my head. For a few days, I actually forgot about it. That's the worst part of the internet, I think. How fast something horrible gets buried under the next thing. I went to work, bitched about my boss, watched trash TV. I didn't think about the hitchhiker or the vending machines or that phrase on the door. Ich lebt fine. Fast forward maybe 2 months. I'm on a main page, not even logged into the throwaway, just my regular account. A true crime post hits the front page. Title has the word hitchhiker and rest area, and my brain kind of twitches. I click it without thinking. It's a link to a news article, some local outlet 3 states away from me. Young woman, no ID, backpack found nearby, body dumped at an old rest stop off a highway. The article calls it senseless and tragic, and all the usual words that get used so many times they stop meaning anything. They embedded a few photos from a scene. I scroll, and there they are, the vending machines. One smashed in, glass all spiderwebbed, the other smeared with some old brown streak. My throat closed up so fast I actually coughed. The photo of the bathroom door wasn't super clear, but you could still see it. Those 3 words in ugly red letters. God hates tourists. I just stare at my phone. Everything went kind of tight and slow, like a hangover, but sharper. I scroll back up, check the date on the article. The body was found a week ago. The post I read was 3 months old? I could feel my heart banging around in my chest while I tried to do the math. I kept telling myself it was a coincidence. There are a million grimy rest stops with busted machines and shitty graffiti. But the phrase, that exact phrase, the dead security light, the way he described the stall, even the rust around the lock. My hand started shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. I logged out, logged into the throwaway, and went straight to my history. Scrolled frantically, the way you do when you're trying to find something you know you saw and your brain is screaming that you imagined it. There was the dark fantasy buried under a pile of other garbage I'd clicked. I opened it, half expecting it not to load. It didn't. Post not found. Error message. My whole body went cold. I hit back, tried again, same thing. The username was just some random string of letters and numbers. I tapped it. Account suspended, no comments. It was like someone had erased the guy. I'm not proud of what I did next. I panicked. I deleted the link from my history, like that somehow disconnected me from it. Then I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall for a long time, and finally this voice in my head went, "Find the cache versions. You know how this works." So I did. I copied the title from my history, searched it, found bot reposts that scrape entire subs and mirror them. The original account was gone, but little chunks of that text were still out there like stains that wouldn't come out. I clicked through thread after thread, reading his words in third-party bot accounts. They had the whole story preserved. He'd imagined the exact route he took, where he pulled over, the angle he parked the car, so the broken light would be behind it, how he put his hand over her mouth when she started to scream and talk sense into her. And then there were details the article didn't have. Where he left her, how he took her shoes and tossed them in a dumpster so no one would think she walked away. The way he joked about souvenirs, mentioning something small he kept that never showed up in the news at all. He even described the order of the bruises: wrist, jaw, then ribs like he was writing a fucking tutorial. I went back to the news story and saw that police had only released the basics. They didn't mention the shoes or the exact position of the body or anything about bruising. I opened a second tab with another local article, then a third with some crime blog. Same limited info. My brain started to split in two. One part trying to rationalize, one part already knowing. Maybe he lived nearby and just heard sirens. Maybe he drove past while they were still investigating. Maybe he made it all up and they're just similar. But the more I reread, the less room there was for maybe. I argued with myself like a crazy person. If this is real, you can't ignore it. If you send it in, cops might actually need it. But what if you're wrong and you waste their time? What if they trace it back to you and think you're the one who wrote it? That last thought dug in hard. I had this picture in my head of detectives knocking on my door, taking my laptop, reading my search history. So you hang out in these subs a lot, huh? Try explaining that without sounding fucked up. I opened an empty email window 3 times and closed it again. My heart kept flipping between guilt and fear. At one point, I actually said out loud, "Fuck this, someone else probably already sent it." Like that excuse me. Like the universe runs on probably. In the end, I forced myself to do it. I Googled the police department in that town, found the tip email, and started typing. I explained about the post, the rest stop, the match graffiti, the timeline. I pasted links to the bot reposts, added timestamps, even grabbed archive versions in case they got scrubbed. My fingers shook the whole time. I kept imagining the guy, wherever he was, refreshing that thread the night he posted it, getting off on people calling it good writing. When I hit send, nothing exploded. No immediate knock on my door, no instant reply. Just the send icon and then my empty inbox staring back at me. About a day later, I got a reply from some generic address with a form signature. It just said, "Thanks for the information. We'll review, blah, blah, blah." No follow-up questions, no phone call. Maybe it went to someone's desk. Maybe some detective pulled the reposts, printed them, underlined the parts that matched. Maybe they already had the guy lined up, and my little email changed nothing. I have no way of knowing. I'd love to say I felt relieved after that, like I'd done my part. I didn't. I felt dirty. I kept thinking about that moment, that first second when I saw the post, and my thumb, all on its own, rewarded it. For a few stupid seconds, I treated what he did, what he bragged about doing, to a real girl like content, like a story to rate and scroll past. I sat there in the dark, phone inches from my face, breathing shallow while some asshole calmly narrated how he ruined a stranger's life, and I just went to bed.